So, good morning. As you all know, my name is Orion. And I'm going to skip the intro today, and I'm just going to go into the lesson in order to conserve time. And the title of my course is called The Human Experience Course in Enlightenment, and I'm going to explain that title. So in order to do that, let's start by talking about the human experience. All right. So what comes to mind when you hear those words? Any of the audience want to share their impressions? When they hear those words, the human experience, what comes to mind?
I have a different answer than I had before.
Okay.
Now I see myself and others as basically a nebulous mist or ghost in a flesh, blood, and bone vehicle, apparatus.
Okay.
Learning to navigate the earthly plane.
Right.
And through our senses, we experience what we think about, what we focus on, and what we choose. And everything that shows up in our physical experience is a reflection of what we focus on. And that gives us an opportunity to change it, for better or for worse, to learn new things, and to rebrand ourselves however we see fit. It's a sort of freedom that doesn't always feel that way.
Right. That's a great answer. That's a really good answer. You kind of just summarize the essence of what I seek to convey in this class. All right. Does anybody else want to share their opinions? Dad, EJ. All right. So for many years, this concept of the human experience has been recirculating through my mind, and I've spent a lot of time associating my ideas, my experiences back to this one concept. All right, and it seems to me that the human experience is something that we're all familiar with. It's all something that we deal today, on a day-to-day basis, and you can pretty much assume and be safe in assuming that the person that you know is going through a similar human experience. And even though it's the same concept that underlies our experience, it's different for each one of us. It's unique to the individual. And it seems to me to be the most relevant subject out there, but nobody's talking about the human experience. When's the last time people have had just directly address the human experience? We talk about things like, healthcare, social reform, this and that all generally relates to the human experience, but nobody directly addresses the human experience. All right. So throughout the duration of this class, I'm going to talk about the way that I've come to see the human experience and share some of my insights that could potentially enlighten. So I'm going to start off with a quote by a French philosopher named Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, and he puts it really simply by stating, "We are not human beings having a spiritual experience. We are spiritual beings having a human experience." Okay, and I think that goes in line with what Dr. Rochelle said. All right, and the second part of this title of my course is called The Course in Enlightenment. But in order to focus on the human experience for now, I'm going to skip to I'm going to mention this part at the end of the class. All right. So the way that I see the human experience is a marriage between our spiritual consciousness and our human consciousness. It's like a bond, and the human experience arises from that bond. All right. When these two components come together, it creates what we know as the human experience. We're spiritual beings having an experience on an earthly kind of plane. All right, so in order to gain a greater understanding of consciousness, of the human experience, I'm going to talk about consciousness. All right. So I'm going to begin by identifying how the word consciousness is used today. All right. One of the ways the word is used is to refer to people as self-conscious beings. This is the thing that we say differentiates us from the rest of the animal kingdom. All right. It's basically responsible for our sense of identity, our sense of selfhood, And it's our ability to acknowledge that we're having our own experience. Okay? And this particular brand is what has allowed us to create the world in the way it is today. You know, it's allowed us to construct modern civilization. Another way that the word consciousness is used is, another way that the consciousness is understood is as, it's a perceiver of your experience. You know, it's the perceiver of your thoughts, your emotions, as well as your external world, like, you know, the world that you perceive through the five senses. Also your dreams. So it's not just limited to physical experience, it's also the seat upon which, you know, your internal and external experiences both sit. Okay, so think about when somebody attempts to describe themselves in the now moment. How do they do that? What are the words that they always use to describe themselves in the now moment? They'll always say, I am. You know, they say, I am doing this, I am doing that, or they'll say I am, but that's exactly, you know, it's just a different variation of the same word. Essentially what we say when we're talking about I am, we're referring to the essence of our consciousness. It's the essence it's the underlying concept of everything. If you weren't able to say I am, then you wouldn't even be able to have experiences the way that we know it to be. And that's essentially the core of our identity. Okay? Another way that we use the word consciousness is to describe the different levels of mental activity. We say we have a consciousness, subconsciousness, superconsciousness. We also use it to describe a person's wakefulness or coherence. You know, what this person was unconscious of, that they were doing this or that, or they were in an incoherent, unconscious state. All of these definitions of consciousness are valid. Okay, but generally speaking, consciousness has been used to describe a perceiver, you know, a passive perceiver. But in today's world, we're awakening to a new understanding of consciousness. We're awakening to, after a lot of spiritual and scientific revolutions, we're awakening to the fact that consciousness isn't just the perceiver, it's also the creator of experience. You know, we're hearing this notion that we create our realities a lot more than we did 20 years ago, 30 years ago. It's this thing that's continually recirculating, and it's gaining predominance in our modern thought. Okay? So, in order to understand truly what consciousness is, I'm going to use what I call the reality triangle. Okay? So, we're going to have to start from square one. All right, we're going to have to basically put all of our previous assumptions aside temporarily in order so we can pursue a new understanding of consciousness. All right? So, square one is a question. What is the one thing that we know about our reality undeniably? What is the one thing that we cannot deny? We know it for certain. Does anybody have any suggestions maybe? What is the one thing that we can't deny? All right. It's that we exist. Oh, I'm sorry. It's that we exist. You know, we can't deny our own existence. That's the one thing that we can be certain of. So I start the explanation of the reality triangle with that. Existence. Okay, that's the one thing that we know we are. We exist. Okay? So what does existence do? What is existence engaged in? What is the activity what defines existence from non-existence? It's experience. All right? Existence is able to create experience. That's actually its only function. All right, so we have these two undeniable facts. One, that we exist, and that we experience. Okay? Whether we're sleeping, we're dreaming, whether we're in whatever state, we're always having an experience. We're always having an experience. And as long as we have an experience, we exist. All right? So, these are the two undeniables. Okay, so now we're going to talk about experience. Okay? What is an experience? What does it mean to have an experience? All right? And this is a very elusive question. So I'm going to move to another question, and I'm going to be, what does an experience require? what does an experience require to exist? Okay. It requires both a perceiver and a creator, or an observer and a source. All right, these are the two basic ingredients to every single experience that we could have. All right. So, in my definition of consciousness, the activity of consciousness, the role of consciousness in all of this is to assume the role of both the perceiver and the creator. All right. This is the function of consciousness. Okay. Now, all three of these concepts, consciousness, existence, and experience, are all interrelated concepts. You can't separate them. Okay. It's like you braided it together, you know, permanently. All right. You can't talk about existence without talking about experience or talking about consciousness. You can't have an experience without consciousness having created it and perceived it. Okay. And these are the basic fundamental concepts of our reality. All right? So, the way I define consciousness, see, I haven't really defined consciousness yet. I've only told you what it does. Okay? So, consciousness can be described as both the creator and the creation. Okay? It's both the cause and the effect. All right? So consciousness is both the cause and effect. And this means basically that it is solely accountable for its own reality experience. It's self-contained and self-sufficient in itself to do whatever it wants to do. All right? Nothing could limit this, because since it's both the cause and effect. All right, now we're going to talk about identity and reality. You see how I put these on the same line, because each one of these are actually related. All right, the creator is the cause. All right, and the identity, your identity is a reflection of reality. The things that you claim as a part of your own identity constructs your reality. Okay, so we're talking about qualities, attributes, characteristics. These are the things that compose of our identity. Okay, and our reality is essentially just a reflection of the things that we have in our identity. Because, like I said, consciousness is both the cause and the effect. It's both the creator and the creation. All right. Now we're going to sidetrack a little bit. Think about whenever somebody creates something, whatever it is. It could be a book, it could be a sculpture, it could be some food. It doesn't matter. Anything, any act of creation, is essentially an expression of that person's identity. Okay. And your reality is no different. Okay. Now the reality that you may be experiencing now may not be representative of your identity, but since it is a cause, your identity did cause it at some point, okay? Okay, so we already know that consciousness is both the perceiver and the creator, okay? And it's fulfilling these roles simultaneously at the same time, all right? Both of these things happen in one moment, all right? This is the now moment. Okay. This is the eternal now moment. Okay. Perception, creation. All of these are related, all right, but they both take place in one moment, all right? Reality is created at the same time that it's lived, okay? And like I said, this happens in the now moment. And what did I say about the now moment before was that the only way that you can describe yourself in a now moment, you can't avoid using these words, is by saying, I am. Okay, I am. I'm not a big religious guy, but I know one thing about the Bible. And I know that when God revealed his name to Moses in the burning bush, he said, I am. This is our true nature. Okay, this is who we really are. All right, our I am is something that we can't avoid doing. It's something that we can't avoid being. We'll always be it, whether we may be conscious of it or not. All right. So at the essence of our identity and the essence of our reality is the I am. Okay, it's the I am presence that we can just feel within us. All right. So consciousness both creates and inhabits its creation at the same time. All right. Now I know this is kind of a mind bender, but try to wrap your mind around this, and you'll begin to be able to just feel it within you and around you. All right. Consciousness guides change. Okay. Now the thing about experience is that it's always changing. All right. Our reality is always moving from one moment to the next. Everything's always changing all the time. It's something that you can't avoid. All right. The role of consciousness, as I said, is all of these, but essentially what it's doing is just guiding that change that's always occurring. Okay. So how is this relevant to you and your human experience? All right. I'm going to go out on a limb and say that some of you may be here for a reason. Okay. At the reason that this class could potentially offer you something that could enrich and enhance your life. Something that could provide more clarity on the subject, or give you a closer sense of connection to the divine, or for some sort of upliftment. Okay? And this is the motivation that actually motivates us to do everything we do in our lives. Okay? But I'm going to go out further and say that you all may seek some sort of change. Something to implement in your life, some way you can alter your human experience, all right? And we all want to create some sort of change in our life that's more suitable to our desires. It could be health, it could be our relationships, it could be our money. All right, but essentially what we seek to do is we seek to alter some aspect of our human experience, okay? And as long as we seek to do that, the knowledge of consciousness holds great value. All right. So people always want more out of life. One thing you hear about life is the pursuit of happiness. Everybody's on their own individual pursuit of happiness. Okay. And wanting happiness is wanting a change in your life. Because our definition of what makes us happy is always changing, it's always shifting. So one day it could be this, one day it could be that. But when we pursue happiness, we're going through a journey of change, of transformation, of evolution. And that's the value of consciousness. Consciousness creates that change within your reality. All right, because our human experience is malleable, all right? We're constantly, actively engaged in molding our human experience all the time. All right? It's not something that we have to start doing because it's always something that we've been doing. We just need to learn how to do it more effectively. Okay? So, in order to effectively create change, we have to delve deeper into the nature of consciousness. All right? So, consciousness. All right, so essentially consciousness is creative in nature. As I said, it's both the cause and effect, so it has full creative freedom. All right, so I'm going to suggest that we begin to look at ourselves not only as self-conscious beings, but also beings of creator consciousness. Okay, self-consciousness has that kind of feeling to me that, you know, we're not really aware of our consciousness yet in its full creative capacities. But when we claim ourselves as self-conscious beings, that's like saying that we're kind of just a passive perceiver in our reality. So seeing ourselves as creator consciousness is seeing ourselves as part of having our own experience and also being connected to a much greater creation, much greater experience, and that we're one with that consciousness that created the universe. All right. So I define creative consciousness as the awareness of being actively and solely engaged in the creation of one's individual reality experience, and the awareness of participating in the co-creation of a greater collective reality. All right. So what does this all mean? How does this apply to you? Well, the first if you want to create change, the first thing that you should do is assume responsibility over your reality. Take ownership over it. Okay? Now, assuming ownership is the only way that you can change your reality. It's like, if you don't assume ownership, it's almost like a potter who wants to create this pot, but he doesn't want to mold the clay. He doesn't want to assume, he doesn't want to own the clay, he doesn't want to assume responsibility for whether he fails or not. But we can't do that with the human experience because, like I said, we're always in the act of creating. And if we ignore our responsibility, then we're just creating a reality that's representative of that ignorance, the arrogance, or whatever it is. Okay, so realizing the creative power of the words I am is what I feel the first step to empowering yourself. And if you realize the power of these words and you go out there and you see how people are using it, then you can see why they're in the situations why they find themselves in the situations that they're in. You know, a lot of people go out there and they say, oh, I'm broke, I'm this. All the things that they don't want to experience in their reality, they'll say, oh, I am this, I am that, I am that. And they're misusing this word because they don't understand its power. Okay, but when you use these words, anything that follows is what you mold your reality with. All right? So, understand the authority of these words. All right? Understand the authority that you have over your life. And since you are the cause and the effect of your reality, understand the power of choice. All right, that means you're free to choose whatever you want for yourself. Whatever you want for yourself. All right? So I encourage the audience to make a self-assessment. All right, see what labels and attributes and qualities and characteristics and traits that they have associated with their identity. Because what a person claims as their own identity determines what they get back. Okay? And they do that by associating with the I am. They'll say, oh, I am this. Their concept of their self is what determines how they create their reality. And it's no different from the way an artist paints a painting or any act of artistic expression. It's the exact same thing because that artistic expression is a reflection of what is within that person. All right? So, as I said, life is just lived in the now moment. In order to be an effective creator, we have to stay anchored in the now moment. We can't worry about the past. We can't worry about the future. All right? The past oftentimes makes people depressed, and the future oftentimes makes people anxious. I'm no exception to this rule. But when you live in the now moment, you can find peace, and you can empower yourself with that creative ability that you have, that inherent nature within you, to create and mold your reality through however you want it. All right? Now, you can redefine your experience however you like, all right? But the most effective step is understanding these words. And they don't always have to be spoken. Most of this happens on a subconscious level, you know. Your self-image is such an important factor in determining what reality you create for yourself. Okay? So, I'm going to talk about how we use consciousness in our day-to-day lives and how we've always been using it and we only need to be more aware of it. All right? So in order to do this, I'm going to use the illustration of a basic principle that is easy to observe in our reality. All right, so this is a principle that I call the idea actualization principle. All right, so consider for a moment the things that we use every day. All right, it could be the clothes that we wear, the camera that we're using, TV, anything that you can think of. All right, all of these things that you experience all had to be created. They all had to be constructed. All right. They all first had to exist in the form of an idea. All right? Now this is everything that you can, this building, everything that you can experience first had to exist in the form of an idea. All right? the way that our modern civilization is constructed is from ideas. All right, they're both concrete, both abstract ideas. You know, concrete being, you know, buildings, cars; abstract being laws, you know, regulations, social reforms that we agree to, anything that we agree to. But anything that we experience is something that we have accepted into our reality. Okay. At the heart of every social or political movement, every institution, every culture, every counterculture is an underlying idea at its essence. Okay, so this is a simple observation, all right, but it's relevant because ideas are an activity that occur within consciousness. Okay, so consciousness both, like I said, both perceives and creates its reality. But how does it do that? It uses ideas. Okay? Everything had to be constructed from an idea. You couldn't construct anything if it first hadn't existed in the form of an idea. All right? Whenever you make a career decision or whenever you do anything, there's always an idea behind it. There's always an intention, always a purpose. All right, now this may be considered an elementary, basic fact, but our world today is a product of ideas. And when we realize that, we begin to understand how we can empower ourselves with this word right here, these words, I am. So if you want to manifest something in your reality, say I am and claim your oneness with that idea. Whatever you say I am with, you claim as a part of your identity. And that in turn reflects your reality. Okay? So our reality is basically a result of the ideas that we have claimed as part of our own identity. Okay? The acceptance that we have given it. Okay, so in order to have an experience, it must exist in the form of an idea. All right. Now, this creative principle, this basic creative principle, doesn't only apply to things that are man-made. Okay? It applies to our whole natural universe. All right, all matter actually correlates to an idea. All right, our universe is the fruition of an infinite variety of the ideas. All right, mineral life, elemental life, the rocks, the plants, the animals, no exception. It all first began in the form of an idea. And we have to accept this, it's best to accept this because we have no other way by which something can be constructed. Okay, that's the only way that we know something can be brought into form, is through an idea. All right, so what am I getting at? All right, our universe is consciousness. It's engaged in creation just the same way that we are. All right, actually, it's like we're almost a miniaturized replica of the universal consciousness on a planet. All right, so it's a being that has the same sense of awareness that we have as people, and it's constructing its reality the same way that we construct our modern civilization, except by just far more advanced means. All right, so we possess the same brand of consciousness that created the universe. When you realize that, you can empower yourself with these words, I am. Okay? But we haven't talked about how consciousness actualizes an idea into an experience. Because like I said, an experience, an idea is just an idea. It's a non-material idea. So it has an actualizing factor. Okay? So what is it that brings an idea into life? Okay? That actualizing idea, the actualizing power, is actually light. Light. Okay, so light. Light is what consciousness uses to actualize an idea into experience. All right, it's the only substance there is in the universe, and it's the building block of our reality. All right, light is what fills the mold of an idea. Essentially, what ideas are is they create molds for experience. Every aspect of our reality had to exist in the form of an idea. And that idea serves as a mold. And as we pour forth light into it, it brings it into experience. It's what actualizes experience. Okay, so all matter is a density of light. All right? Matter, our material universe is just a density of light, the same way that ice is densified water. Okay? Light is the substance and essence of from which everything is made. It emanates from the center of our universe, similar to what our sun does for our solar system. Okay? And the further light rays are projected from the source, the more it densifies. Same way that we have our material universe. Okay? So, I'm going to talk about the vibration of love. All right, this vibration produces an experience of what translates into our human experience as love. All right, and it's a energy that vibrates on a very rapid vibration. It has a very high potential to create change. Okay. Okay, so these two concepts of love and light are inseparable because one produces the other. All right, light is a consequence of love is a consequence of light. Light is a consequence of love. Okay, in all the metaphysical literature that I've read, these two concepts are always mentioned together. They're inseparable, and every being that's beyond the earthly realms knows this basic fact. Okay, so I'm going to go back to how consciousness is the cause, the effect, the creator, the creation, the identity, the reality. And so at the core of our identity, since now we know that light is the cause of our reality, we know that it's at the core of our identity. All right, in order to create our reality the way that we do, this has to be at our core, the core of our identity. It's our very nature, it's our essence. Okay? And the I am presence is also at the core of our identity. All right, so one could say that the I am presence is the source of all light and love, or love is the source of the I am presence. You could say both of these statements would hold true. Okay, but essentially what we are doing when we are creating our reality is we're projecting light the way a sun does to the solar system, and that light is reflected, and that creates our reality experience. All right, see, I am are the words that command all life. Okay, whatever comes after these words, light will take on the form of it because it has both the intelligent and the energetic properties to do that, and you will create your life experience. All right. Now, these are very symmetrical concepts once you start grouping them together. All right, and it's easy to illustrate how you are in control of your reality. You're the only one. Now, taking responsibility for it may be inconvenient at first. It may seem like it's too much to handle, and I know that I'm no exception. When I started learning these ideas, these principles, these facts, it was a little overwhelming because you realize that you're the cause of it all. You know, you're both the cause and the effect. But once you get over that I don't want to assume that responsibility phase and into that, you know, I have no other choice. I have no other choice but to assume responsibility phase. You realize that this is actually really empowering. You know, you are the one that controls it. You know, just the way that a scientist controls an experiment and is able to produce certain results, you know, based on certain factors. Okay. So how does this relate to your human experience? All right. We've all been conditioned into a society that undermines emotion and represses love. We've built up so many barriers to love that are motivated by the fear of vulnerability. But these same barriers are the ones that also serve to disempower us and hold us in limitation. Okay? The notion that love makes one weak still pervades mankind's thought and has been accepted to a certain degree. All right? But the more that we estrange ourselves from love, the more we estrange ourselves from our true inherent nature. All right, now I'm going to talk about how love basically plays a key role in all of our lives. Okay, it's the motivating, guiding force behind our day-to-day lives. Right, and people, you know, today lead these really busy and demanding lives in order to, you know, provide for loved ones or themselves. But it's always in the pursuit of happiness. All right, actually, the pursuit of happiness, you know, or peace, or freedom, or prosperity, or abundance, or joy, or whatever these things are, at its essence is just the pursuit of love. All right, we all want to feel love. That's everybody's motivation in anything. Now, we all seek comfort, you know, support, acceptance, and also in its essence is just love. All right. It plays a key role in our survival as a species, okay? If it wasn't for our capacity to form loving relationships, then, you know, we wouldn't be able to form tribes or communities or societies or cultures or even civilizations, okay? Our chances for survival, when we're able to form those loving bonds, it enhances our chances for survival, all right? Love is the first requirement that newborn babies have. You know, they're in this tender, fragile state, and they're wholly dependent on the love from a mother in order to survive. And we're all humans could relate to this. Okay, and think about when acts of creation, when an artist has a vision for a painting, or an athlete has a vision for a career in pro sports, or whatever it may be. The force within that compels them to put their time and their energy forth to actualize that experience is love. Okay? So, or whenever a person is engaged in something, have you ever noticed how much care or how deeply engaged they are? And, you know, and they oftentimes produce something that's beautiful or perfect, or you know, something that just creates this sense of awe within you, you know? Well, love is so deeply a part of our inherent nature, you know. It's something that we have in common with all species. We're not even the only species who's able to experience that emotion of love. You know, dogs, you know, primates. We all, you know, and many other species on this earth, we all experience love. So it's this one thing that unites us with all life everywhere, you know. So obviously, I'm not even talking exclusively about the love, the kinds of love that people can share for one another, okay? While that is included, I'm more specifically referring to the kind of love that a creator has for its creation, all right? I'm talking about a love that comes in infinite, unconditional supply, all right, to us all for eternity, all right? I'm talking about divine love, which is essentially the light of all creation. All right. Now, this is the greatest tool at our disposal. All right. We harness the power of love as creator consciousness to create whatever we wish to produce. All right. This is something, like I said, that we don't have to start doing. It's a basic function. It's so automatic, and the more we become consciousness of this automatic function, the more we can empower ourselves by controlling it. Okay, now with the power of love, like I said, it is an energy that has very high potential to manipulate the rates of change that occur within our reality. Okay, and the more you resonate on this frequency, the more control that you are afforded to create that change, the more influence you have over your reality. All right. If we recognize it for what it is, then we can harness these creative capacities that mold our human experience. All right. So how is this relevant to you and your human experience? All right. Well, as I mentioned before, we all seek to implement some sort of change to better our lives in some sort of way. And what greater way is there than with love? Okay? By remaining anchored in that vibration, that feeling of love, then we actually raise our vibration. Because any act of raising your vibration is a movement toward greater love. All right? When we're able to anchor that energy within us and stay heart-centered and aligned to love, it empowers us with that ability to mold our reality the way that a potter molds clay. It's that malleable, okay? And the more that we estrange ourselves from that vibration of love, then the more that clay hardens, and the more difficult it is to mold. You know, I couldn't think of a better analogy as to how you could, you know, your beliefs and your perspectives serve to mold your reality. Okay, so we have, okay, well, the higher we raise our vibration, essentially the more we control the constant transmutations of energy and matter. All right, this is possible because the more closely you align to love, the more rapid your vibration, the more influence you have, and the more you change your reality. All right. Now, we have access to the greatest source of energy within ourselves. All right. Now, I'm talking about these words, I am. What's more? Obviously, people have called this many things throughout the ages. All right. One of those things is spirit. One of those things is God, or God's self, the inner God within you, or whatever it is. But essentially, it's the same thing. All right? It's on a small scale, it's on a large scale, but it's all around us. It's all around us, all around us. And at its essence, God or spirit or whatever is that sense of selfhood. It's the source of all love within us. And I relate that to the spirit because people relate more to the spirit. They say, oh yeah, I can feel my spirit, but they really may not know what I'm talking about when I say I am presence. But it's what allows us to be self-sufficient creators. It's that source of light within us that beats our heart. It's that inner essence that we can just feel. All right? Now, our world today has become so competitive, all right? It's a competitive arena where people compete with one another for all types of things like energy or money. All right, and money, as it's been accepted in our society, we've created to be almost a form of energy. You know, the more money you have, the more stuff you're able to do. So essentially, we've created this artificial kind of energy through the acceptance of this idea. Okay? But you know, money as it's been accepted is just energy. And when people compete for energy, essentially what they're doing is they're competing for love. All right? Essentially what they're doing is competing for love, because if they knew the power of the I am presence of the love that's within them, and how it's an infinite source, and you can control energy, you can do anything that you want when you harness that power, then the need to compete for these earthly energies would cease. Okay? And we do this unknowingly, you know, not understanding that the greatest source of energy is within us, and it beats our hearts. So, I'm going to wrap up today by just offering you a few suggestions to stay anchored in love. All right, make a self-assessment. You know, who are you really, and be true to that person. Be true to your real self. make a list of all the things that you love to do throughout the day. It could be writing a crossword puzzle. It could be reading a book. It could be taking a walk in the park, or taking your dog out, or going out to exercise, or doing something. Social interactions, it doesn't matter. Whatever you love to do as a unique individual, whatever is a part of your unique identity, just go ahead and do it. Be anchored in that love. And not only that, but try to find reasons, try to learn what you love about yourself. Take a piece of paper out and write all the qualities, all the good things that you know about yourself. From the perspective of of a friend. Write about yourself as if you were your own friend. Talk about your good qualities. All right. But the idea is to stay anchored in that vibration of love. And I'm talking about self-love, and I'm talking about love for others. But the more that we remain in that vibration, the more we empower ourselves. It may not seem all that practical at first, but when you think about it, that's the only way that we can survive on this planet and cohabitate peacefully. That's the only way, that's the only means by which peace on earth can be achieved. All right, so the answer's always been there, and inherently we've known this. It's just we've been recalcitrant as a mankind, and we haven't fully accepted this basic truth. But I'm going over my time, so I'm gonna wrap up and say thank you for your time, and see you next week.